Welcome, everybody. Apologies for yesterday's disruptive hacker situation. Thank you to those who stuck with it for our 90-minute session. And here is, I'm going to record the presentation that I would have delivered to you without disruption and answer to your questions. So I will be doing these more frequently. The last time I did a master class was in July of last year, and a lot happened in terms of growth and opportunities. And so I will be absolutely doing these more frequently. So be sure to follow me over on Eventbrite, and um, and that way I can you can be notified of future events that I am doing. Okay, so let's get this slideshow started. So I think we can all agree that nutrition is quite confusing. The landscape is quite confusing out there, depending on who you're following. You might be slightly confused, but you're in the right place if you're health conscious, you are very curious about how to continuously improve your health. You're in the right place if you have a clinical condition and you want to get to the root of solving for that condition, and you're very interested in how nutrition support can optimize you. Because let's face it, it is a confusing landscape out there. Perhaps some of these questions, such as is coffee healthy or not, or is saturated fat bad? Does kale have too many oxalates? Like Dave Asprey tells us not to eat kale. Um, why are certain people avoiding fiber? And there are so many documentaries touting the healthfulness of plant-based programs. So, today's talk is all about really diving into what is right for you and your personal biochemistry. Because if you've ever tried a friend's program, like your friend had success on a program and you didn't, this could elucidate why that happened. So perhaps you've seen the statistic that 93% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. And if you're tuning in from another country, UK or Australia, unfortunately, they're not far behind us. So these are the categories that constitute as metabolically unhealthy: high fasting glucose, high triglycerides, low HDL, high blood pressure, abdominal obesity, a BMI over 27, and insulin resistance. So let's talk about what the word metabolism means, because a lot of us think it's just about caloric expenditure, and that is simply not true. The definition is the chemical processes that occur within a living organism in order to maintain life. And so that means your metabolism is everything you see here. It is your breathing function. It is a circulating blood. It is about controlling your body temperature. It's about contracting muscle like your heartbeat and movement from skeletal muscle. It's growing and repairing cells. It's keeping hormonal balance in your body. Even such a thing as your cortisol to help you get up out of bed, and your melatonin to help you go to sleep at night. Producing energy from food. That is what we think of in terms of metabolism. And do I have a healthy metabolism, extracting nutrients from food and being efficient with utilizing that food, and keeping my weight at an optimal place? But as you can see, that's only one piece of the pie. So the key to metabolic success is metabolic flexibility. So when we extract those nutrients from food or supplementation, we want to be able to toggle switches for energy usage flexibly. And what does that mean? So we use fuel from two primary sources, glucose and fatty acids. So if you are primarily a sugar burner, you're utilizing only glucose, you become very inefficient at utilizing fat. And if you only utilize fat all the time and you never have a sugar molecule cross your lips, which would be incredibly hard, but if you never do, you can also become glucose intolerant, and that can also elevate your blood sugar. So we want to be flexible and teach the body how to do that. In primal days, when we were hunter-gatherers, we didn't always have food. So we feasted and we also had famine, and we don't have that problem today. So, so that is a piece of the pie for becoming metabolically flexible is inducing moments when there is less food. But it's not about doing that all the time and then also turning down the rhythm on your metabolism, down regulating your thyroid function, slowing things down, telling the body that not enough food is coming in. And that is a danger of being over dieted or perhaps even too much time on a GLP-1 these days where you're just not hungry ever. And so now you're eating once a day in perpetuity, and then you come off the medicine and your appetite signals come back as they should, and weight gain returns. So we don't want that to happen either. But you can see if we move from flexibility to an optimal status, we now have healthy blood glucose, we have healthy cholesterol, we have a normal blood pressure, we have low to no visceral fat. And visceral fat is that dangerous fat around the organs. And it doesn't just exist in the belly. You can have dangerous visceral fat around the heart and other organs as well. And it will show up in an MRI if that is of interest to be checked out. Healthy weight, of course, and then insulin sensitivity is a very important marker. Doctors really don't tend to check insulin, and that's really unfortunate because it only costs $6 to do that marker in blood work. An optimal fasting insulin is under 5. So it's okay. It's good if it's under 10, but optimal is under a 5. So sadly, our medical system, and I have tons of respect for doctors and nurses and anyone in the medical profession, but the system is not built for prevention or for diving deep into figuring out root causes. It's urgency, it's managing symptoms, it's often the management of pharmaceuticals to manage it would be the key word to, well, sustain life, right? To keep people going, but not necessarily to solve their problems. And that is unfortunate. It's just the way the system is currently. And hopefully in the future that does change. So these are what's called the four horsemen of aging, the big four, if you will, that that supposedly naturally come along with aging, but I don't believe in this. I think these can be avoided with healthy living. So cardiovascular disease, cancer, neurodegenerative disease, metabolic disease, um, completely avoidable for sure 100%. And at least 20% of people will, that's 1 out of 5, will get one of these things. And in about 25 years, it is believed that, so by 2050, it is believed that 50% of Americans will have diabetes, this metabolic disease. That's that's totally preventable. So longevity is a function of lifespan as well as health span. So not just how long you live, but the quality of those years. And perhaps you can see, I don't, if I move my bar, that, well, it is believed that humans can live up to 130 years. But the average life expectancy, at least in the United States, is 78. Now, and that's just, again, managing symptoms. Oftentimes, by 78, folks are on a lot of medicine. They're in and out of the doctor's office, and they have a lot of aches and pains. Things are falling apart, and that doesn't need to be the case either. So if you also do your part, you can live well beyond 78. Sure, it would be nice to get to 100, but if you do your part, the decline is not so rapid, and it would be nice to just bop along, like doing great, and then okay, see you later. That is obviously the ideal. So, because I do specialize in genetics, genetics do play a role in lifespan, especially after 80. They tend to kick in. There are approximately 20 known longevity genes like FOXO3 and the sirtuin genes, the SIRT genes as well. Those are pretty well studied. Okay, so here's what we know for sure, about extending health span and living longer life. So we know that social support is key. It's the number one thing for living a long life. It's a better predictor of lifespan than body mass index, air pollution, or even smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So take time to foster your friendships and your social circle. I'm recently met a lovely 80 something on an airplane, and I asked her what is your secret to staying so vital? And she said, I belong to 3 different senior centers, and I sort of rotate between them and have a very active life at the senior centers. She had lost her husband about 2 decades prior, but she also had a gentleman friend, a boyfriend, if you will, and did not live together. But she said we have date nights, and I don't want to get remarried, and I really just really enjoy my life. And so that was her secret to success. We also know that caloric restriction extends lifespan. The danger of, again, of caloric restriction all the time is that you are signaling to your body to shed muscle mass. And so the other side of this equation is that the more muscle mass you have, that is your single biggest longevity organ that you have, because we know that grip strength is an indicator of lifespan. So if you don't feel strong, work on your grip strength, and uh, and that is going to improve how long you live as well. We also know that diet is the single biggest epigenetic influencer. So what does that mean? Epi means above, genetics. So you have a genetic blueprint, and how you live and eat influences those genes. So what's interesting is that what you eat impacts up to 4 generations down the line. So, and that's a lot of pressure on women, but that that really matters because what the mom eats in pregnancy, it gets transferred to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. We also know that being sedentary has a risk ratio of 3. What does that mean? As an example, if you smoke cigarettes, your risk ratio is 1.5. That means that you are 1.5 times more likely to die from an associated risk from smoking. But if you're sedentary, you are 3 times more likely to die from an associated risk from being sedentary. Why? Because as we age, the muscle mass does decrease unless we are continuously putting stimulus on it and feeding that muscle tissue. And with depleting hormones, our bones get frail as well. So the combination of bone and muscle mass frailty incurs falls. It also leads to a shrinking brain and cognitive decline. So it is very, very, very important to exercise. And that is one pillar that we won't be discussing much today, but it is imperative that you exercise and that you work on getting stronger. So the name of the game is inflammation. And there's 3 major types of inflammation. So we have mental and emotional stress that causes physiological distress. When you are under emotional stress, perhaps you can't sleep at night, but your heart races, your body temperature increases, and a whole bunch of chemicals get released in the body. So there is a physiological component to emotional stress, and a lot of negativity creates inflammation in the body. Biological stress. This is maybe the gut microbiome is impacted. Maybe someone's on a lot of pharmaceuticals and they're having side effects, or some pharmaceuticals have known nutrient depletions. I'll give you one example. If you are on a statin, you should be taking CoQ10, because statin depletes the body of CoQ10. And CoQ10 is a very important cardiovascular enzyme. So the medicine is also hurting a very important nutrient for your cardiovascular system. Physical stress. So let's say you have a broken bone, or you pulled a tendon, or you have arthritis and you need physical work. This also, or you just overexercise, you're overtraining and not recovering well. This creates inflammation in the body. And to go even deeper into the inflammation, this is where it starts. So at the level of the cell, when you heal the cell, you get well. And the cell has so many important parts to it. And one of the ones that keeps us healthy is our mitochondria, right? These are the energy centers of the body. Yes, this picture only has one mitochondria, but you have so many mitochondria inside of one cell. You can have thousands of mitochondria in one cell. So we want to protect our mitochondria because they do deplete with age. They get less robust with age and less efficient with age. So they often need more support to improve. And the exterior of the cell is a lipid layer. It's a fatty layer. So we want to have the integrity of this wall of every cell also be really, really healthy. And this is where healthy fats come into play and and are super, super important. What do cells do? Well, they all have specialized roles. So, uh, we have trillions of cells in the body, whether they're immune cells or muscle cells, brain cells, gut cells, etc. And we have 10 times more than that in terms of bacteria in our gut. However, our cells, they create energy, right? They create ATP. They communicate and send signals to orchestrate all these important body functions that we have, whether it's your motility, like everything you excrete every day. Um, think about even tiny things like shedding tears. I mean, all of these processes are absolutely incredible for cleaning and repairing the body. We have a process called autophagy where we kill off dead cells, and it's sort of a self-eating process and fixing any damage in the body. We replace old cells with new cells. We produce hormones. We cells are building enzymes. Maybe they're building antibodies. They're attacking pathogens that don't belong in your body. And so they're constantly responding to the environment, right? They sense stress, they sense food, toxins, viruses, bacteria, and they're constantly adjusting. So, uh, for those of you who are new to me and you're meeting me for the first time, I do want to take a moment to introduce myself. My name is Christina Hess, and I'm a licensed dietitian, nutritionist, and a health coach who's been in practice for 14 years now. Before that, I was a school teacher. So I do love educating people on nutrition and these topics. It's very fun for me. And I have a functional approach. And so what does that mean? Perhaps you have heard of functional medicine. And I call myself a functional nutritionist. It's coming from this approach and philosophy that understands that all of your body's systems are interconnected. So perhaps you've gone to a specialist, a doctor who maybe it's a cardiologist, or maybe it's an endocrinologist or a gastroenterologist, and they just treat that one system, but they don't ask about what you're eating or what your stress is like, or have you been sleeping? Or are you happy in your job? Or are there heart problems? If it's gastro, what does the cholesterol look like? Um, are all of your hormones working well? These systems are not talking to each other when we go to specialists, unfortunately. So, in functional medicine and now in functional nutrition, we do look at these interconnected things. And we take a look at many aspects of your lifestyle because even just your general level of contentedness and happiness impacts your functionality. In functional nutrition, we use lab testing, which I'm going to go into today. And I consider myself like a detective. I like to connect dots, especially with mysterious cases, and go to the root cause because we could ply you with great food, we could ply you with great supplements, but if we don't figure out the underlying cause of why this is happening or where the inflammation is manifesting, sort of, ground zero, if you will, your problem can just keep coming back. So today we're going to talk about these pillars of health: nutritional biochemistry, exercise physiology. I'm not really going to go into because it's not my specialty. Sleep physiology, recovery practices, and nutraceuticals, drugs, hormones, peptides. These are your main pillars that you're working with for health. Um, Exercise physiology, my philosophy is we should be getting as many steps a day as possible. Uh, More movement is what we're designed to do, and a lot of us are sitting at computers and quite sedentary. I already mentioned the risk there. And if I could go back and tell my younger self anything at all, it would be to consistently weight train. It's not something I started doing regularly until just a couple of years ago. So, as we consider all of those pillars, it starts with your gut health. Okay, so all of your other systems, you could think reproductive system, endocrine system, integumentary, that's your skin system, your brain health, your cardiovascular system, all impacted by what you eat, all impacted by the health of your gut, because your gut is feeding the rest of your body and is taking those nutrients and those building blocks to make hormones and enzymes and neurotransmitters. So without a healthy gut, you aren't going to have downstream effect of other healthy systems in the body. Now, when we talk about a healthy gut, we have to talk about a healthy oral microbiome. Why? Because a healthy gut starts in the mouth. And we do talk about the gut microbiome, but not so much about the oral microbiome. So some things that help the oral microbiome include buying a water pick and putting 1 part hydrogen peroxide with 2 parts water and using that daily to clean your mouth, to clean the gums. Tongue scraping. It's an old Ayurvedic tool. I prefer a metal scraper over a plastic one, but to scrape the bacteria off of your tongue. Very important. Oil pulling. So, this can be an onerous practice if you do it just with straight coconut oil. So, there are over-the-counter um, mouthwashes that simulate oil pulling. They might have some MCT oil in them. And it's much better than a mouthwash, which I do not recommend you ever buy any kind of antiseptic mouthwash like Listerine because it kills off everything. It's like taking an antibiotic, so you don't want that either. You need your good bacteria in your mouth. That is so important because antiseptic mouthwash depletes nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is an incredibly important compound in the body. It helps your blood vessels widen and vasodilate so that more blood flow, more nutrients can go everywhere. And nitric oxide is depleting as we age. So you can get nitric oxide from red foods, or you can buy a Red's powder, or you can buy supplementation that boosts nitric oxide. But this is something that's also depleting, and we don't help it by using toothpaste that has fluoride and antiseptic mouthwash. So you can have, oh, and don't forget to floss. Flossing's very, very key. The brushing of the teeth is less important. It's nice to have that minty. I use an activated charcoal Burt's Bees or Tom's of Maine are perfectly fine. Designs for Health has a nice silver-based, um, it's called Periopol. They have a nice toothpaste as well that has CoQ10 in it and probiotics. So there are a lot of good toothpastes out there. I would avoid the big brands that you can get at any pharmacy. This is my client, Erin. Erin came on for the live webinar that was disrupted and provided her testimonial. She's in college and she came to me 8 months ago with GI pain and bloating. So she was quite distended. You can see she's a tiny person. So her weight never changed throughout our work together in these past 8 months. But she's done before and after stool testing, and we will test her stool again in a couple of months. It's an ongoing process, and but she needed gut restoration. And so I'm going to explain to you a little bit about what we did. She took a test, and I'm happy to share the link to the test if it's something that you want to order directly. Um, it's very easy to interpret without a professional, unlike something like the GI map, which really needs a clinician to interpret. So her original score was around a 13, and it's currently sitting at a 39, so much improved. And we also ran food sensitivity testing. The food sensitivity, and this is not hers, but the food sensitivity test I run is called the P88 dietary antigen test. And I like it because you can see it has four different pathways. So we've got IgE, which is what allergists test. So IgE, immunoglobulin E, is what we would call a true histamine response. And this could be anything from itchy skin to a headache to a swollen tongue. And if these levels are high, you would probably consider it an actual, like a true allergy that you would feel that could potentially even land you in the hospital, like an anaphylactic shock. IgG4, let's see, acts like a firefighter against IgE. So perhaps you've heard of children who maybe have an allergy. Maybe they have a dairy intolerance when they're little that they outgrow. What's happened is the body has made these antibodies to protect it against. Now, it's a little bit deceiving because I'll give you an example. I had a client, he was referred to me by his gastro, who had been diagnosed with celiac at age 58. And 58 is a pretty late age to be diagnosed with celiac these days. But what had happened was that during the pandemic, his wife decided to go plant-based. And so they eliminated animal protein and dairy from the diet. And so he was eating more grains to, sort of compensate for the other foods being gone. And it was a tipping point for him, and it turned on the celiac. But the thing that's interesting about autoimmune conditions is that they are like three legs of a stool. They have three requirements. One, you have to have a genetic predisposition. Number two, you have to have a compromised gut microbiome. And number three, you need a trigger. And the trigger doesn't have to be food. It can be something environmental. It could be a life change like divorce or job loss. It could be like something traumatic. So, but these are three components. This is explained well by Alessio Fasano, the head of neuroimmunology at Mass General. He's a gentleman who coined the term leaky gut syndrome. So he explains that autoimmunity is 100% correlated to gut health. So my celiac friend came to see me, and he wanted to do food sensitivity testing to see if he had any other intolerances. And this is this is what showed up under his gluten, which was so fascinating. This picture. So in this picture, what you're seeing is that the person clearly has an allergy to the food. But the IgG4, what happens, and the test gives you actual numbers on I just only screenshot this one page. But what's cool about tests, they actually give you very specific numbers. Is that his titers under IgG4 were higher than the allergy. So it comes out as an immune tolerance. The body's handling the inflammation until it can't handle it. So you can run this test and see that you are tolerant to a food, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily good for you. Now, most over-the-counter food sensitivity tests they only test IgG, this one. So let me circle that for you. IgG. Immunoglobulin G is based on actual exposure, like secondary, tertiary. So you've been eating that food over and over and over. It might not show up if you're not really eating that food. So a lot of over-the-counter food sensitivity tests that you can get direct to consumer only test this pathway, but I don't like it because it's only based on what you're actually eating, and it's based on how leaky your gut is. You see, your intestinal wall is highly permeable, just like your skin. It's made up of the same cells as your skin. So you know how you put lotion on your skin and you absorb that lotion. Well, that's what happens with our food. We absorb nutrients from our food. The stomach is breaking down the food into something called chyme. It's very liquid. And then the intestinal lining, which is only one cell thick, is absorbing those nutrients to distribute to the body. Now, when there's micro tears in the lining, you have sort of like a lot of illegal immigration because the food isn't totally broken down. And so those molecules or food are perceived as trespassers by the immune cells. And then the immune cells tag those food molecules as problematic. And that is the beginning of how the cycle occurs that the body starts to attack itself. And it could be a healthy food. You can see in this test, none of these foods are processed foods. They are single ingredient foods. They are whole foods. And yet in this picture, there's a lot of inflammation going on. This pathway is called complement. So it's a different immune pathway. And when in this test, when you see uh, levels in both categories, now you have 1,000-fold inflammation. So that's where this category is interesting. Okay. Oh, now I need to erase. Let's see. How do I do that? Nope. Okay. It must be a an eraser. No, it's still here is my eraser. Okay. Let's let's erase you. Okay. All right. So what I do with anyone who's on a gut healing gut healing plan is these 5 R's. This is the methodology behind um, how how someone can heal. So the 5 R's are remove, where we take out inflammatory foods. Let's find out which foods are inflammatory to you. We do an elimination diet, and we also look at a stool test to see, what pathogens are there. Like, do you need to be on antimicrobial, natural antimicrobials? Again, I can't prescribe medicine, so everything I do is natural. Then we do a whole replace protocol, digestive enzymes, support bile acid, support stomach acid, add in probiotic. We rotate probiotics every 90 days. That's very important. Not everybody believes in that, but I do. I don't like to monoculture someone with, same, 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 same. So it's good to put things on rotation. And repairing your gut lining is very, very important. Nutrients like L-glutamine, zinc, carnosine, aloe, marshmallow root, licorice. So, there's so many that are really, really great for the gut lining. And then we want to retain what we've accomplished. When we look at Erin's picture, we we see that, dang, she looks a lot better. All right. Oh boy. Now it's not letting, nope. Well, you can see it's live. Let's get rid of you. No, now it doesn't want to move again. Okay, hang on, stay with me. Stay with me. So food is not just fuel, right? It's not just gas in the tank. It is information. Now, if I like to equate this to information we read. So if you compare, it's sort of like, okay, jelly beans are like People magazine or Star magazine. It's fluff. It's maybe an airport read. It's kind of junk for the mind. And similarly, your colorful foods, your healthy protein, your healthy fats. So whole foods would be quality information. So highbrow, lowbrow, what's coming in, what are you feeding the system? And just like if you owned a luxury vehicle, you wouldn't put bad gas in the tank. So um, it's very important to be a little more connected to what is going in. So please understand that 80% of your results are behavior, mindset, consistency, right? And 20% is the strategy. The frustrating thing is that there are so many strategies, are there not? There's so many books, there's so many programs, there's so many methods to get where you want to go. Kind of like, let's say you're trying to get out of debt, there's the avalanche method, there's the snowball method, there's different strategies. Um, and if you do a strategy consistently, it will work. Unless you go all in on the wrong strategy, which is what happened to me. So here's me 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I was watching the Oprah show, and she had on a guest, Kathy Freston, vegan activist who is very compelling, said everybody should do vegan diet. And here's why, and it's so great for you, and it's so healthy, and it's great for the planet, and all these reasons. And I'm an animal lover. I have a dog. Uh, and I thought, why not? Let's try that. Well, and when I try something, I go all in. All in. The compliance is not an issue for me. Well, within months, I broke my first bone. And my bone didn't take 6 weeks to heal. It took 6 months. Okay, well, still dense, still doing my diet. And then when I was able to kind of get back to exercise, I decided to train for a half marathon. And this was before I had broken my first bone. I was a runner, so I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna train for a half marathon." Great. Well, again, within weeks of getting back to it, I couldn't walk, and I went for an X-ray, and an MRI because I just literally couldn't walk. It was like, what happened? I thought it was a groin pull, but no. The femur, the femoral neck, which is so your big leg bone goes into your hip socket, and it had started to crack. It was cracked halfway, and the doctor said if you don't stop weight bearing and you don't get on crutches, you're going to crack this all the way through. You're going to need surgery. And I had just spent 6 months recovering from the other bone fracture, which was a really nasty collarbone fracture. So I I was like, hell no. But that's when the ding 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 the bells went off that it was the food. And it was the first time that I made the connection that food is bigger. So nutrition is bigger than your weight and your athletic performance. That was the scope in which I thought of nutrition. It was like, okay, what I eat manages my weight, and then, and I need to fuel for my exercise, for energy. Oh my gosh, no, it's way bigger. What you eat also helps your bones. What you eat feeds your brain. What you eat impacts your heart and all your other organs. I didn't make that connection until that moment. And fast forward, I'm in school and I take a class. I've changed careers. I'm getting a master's degree in nutrition, and I take this class called nutrigenomics. It's a genetics class. Let me read you the definition. Nutritional genomics is the study of how diet may affect the expression of genetic information in an individual and how an individual's genetic makeup affects the metabolism and response to nutrients and other bioactive components in food. Okay, what does that mean? It's just like we have a genome that got mapped. They finished mapping it in 2003, so this is all relatively new. It's a map of all humans, like what gene goes where. We discovered vitamin A in the early 1900s. And then the next one to be discovered was vitamin B1 and then B2. And that's why it's the order in which they were discovered is why they are called vitamin A, B1, B2, B3, and then vitamin C and D. It's the order. And then they figured out what those vitamins did, right? Later, they mapped, so they'd figure out the double helix. And then later, it took 23 countries working together over the course of 13 years to map the 25,000 genes that go to, okay, this one's for vitamin C, this one's for vitamin D, this one is CoQ10, this one does, right? So, and it's fascinating to me. So, like I got my genetics done and interpreted, and it made my mind explode. Why? Because it explained why I had broken bones going on a vegan diet. I need more protein. I do not convert certain nutrients from animal sources. I'm sorry, plant sources. Example, not efficient at converting plant omegas like chia seeds and pumpkin and uh, or vitamin A. Like my eyesight got worse in that time because I don't convert from beta carotene, but I can from retinol, which is animal vitamin A. So these distinctions are quite important, quite important. And yes, I'm biased, but I think everybody should get their nutrigenomics test done. Everybody. Because it's something you can go back to over and over and over again. It never changes. You have the report forever. It's an incredible tool. So let me explain a little bit more about DNA. It is our hereditary material. It's the blueprint of you. And you know this already, but there is no one else on the planet just like you. Nobody. And when we talk about that cell, your DNA is present in nearly every cell in your body. 99.99% of all of us, right? We're the same. We're exactly the same. And of course, that's how the medical community treats us. We're all the same. And yet, point 0.1 is different. That's where the nuance is. That accounts for 3 to 4 million different DNA variations. That is incredibly huge. So to put this into perspective for you, wolves and dogs share 99.9% of their DNA. But now think of one, how different wolves and dogs are. And also think about all of this breeds of dogs. So many breeds of dogs that do different things. They're bred for temperament or they're bred to do certain work. Some have hip issues, some have nose issues. Some thrive on certain dietary plans. And you see it with dogs, right? The different kinds of foods that are offered. So if I could convey how very unique you are in that sense, that is the benefit of understanding your genetic profile. For example, my mother was given a statin last year. And one, she didn't need to be on it, but it was just like, you should be on it. You're 75 years old. You should go be on a statin. And within 3 days, she couldn't walk. She thought she was dying. So I said, let's pull out your genetic test to see what your CoQ10 gene looks like. Sure enough, all the way mutated. She should never have been put on a statin. And if the doctor had looked at her genetics, would have told her to supplement herself incredibly with CoQ10 because that CoQ10 would have preserved muscle, like in terms of muscle pain. But still, she just it would be contraindicated to be on a statin for a person like that. So there's pharmacogenetics now these days where you can look at your genetic profile for pharmaceuticals. I don't specialize in that, but that is a whole other field as well. Now, DNA is simply a language. I consider myself an interpreter. of sorts, for nutrition anyway. DNA is only made up of these four letters. So uh, as a cute example, we have here a coat, a goat, and a boat. Three different words with one spelling change. Completely different meanings entirely with that one spelling change. And that is what looking at the DNA is like. So what sorts of things can you glean from nutrigenomics? Well, you can learn about your fat utilization. You can learn about how well you use carbohydrate, protein, whether you are genetically predisposed to weight loss resistance and what to do about it, hormone profiles, detoxification. You know how you always have that outlier 105-year-old person who smokes cigarettes every day, drank wine. Well, they just had incredible detox. Not that all that cigarettes and wine were good for them, but they had amazing detoxification. Not everybody does. So when you see your predispositions, you're more empowered because now you know, what can I do about this? How should I be eating and living and supplementing to optimize myself to prevent those diseases of aging? So nutrigenomics falls under the category called personalized or precision nutrition because it's very precise. It goes farther than general nutrition guidelines by delivering dietary advice tailored to you as an individual and to your specific health goals. So, what does it do? It takes into account DNA and other omics data, food sensitivities, lab tests, right? Looking at your blood work, looking at your lifestyle, stage of life, and even your gender. So, for those skeptics, you're like, I don't know. I don't know. Is it really helpful? Well, for those who need a study, there was a very successful, or very profound, I should say, randomized controlled trial. So, randomized controlled trials, double blind, are the gold standard for a study. This was the first randomized controlled trial of personalized nutrition, and it had participants from 7 European nations. So it was a lot of people. It's a lot of people. It's a big study. And nutrition studies are often quite flawed, but a randomized control trial, very hard to do, but there you go. In this study, participants collected biological samples at home. And that's what I do with my clients. I send you kits at home that you send in, and then we go over the results. So they did this at baseline. So starting point, month 3, month 6. And they studied these 5 gene SNPs. I look at a lot more than that, but FTO pertains to your ghrelin, the hunger hormone. FADS is omega conversion. TCF7L2 is carbohydrates, and incretin. So this one's very important for discerning whether you're going to respond to certain GLP and how much you might need. ApoE, this one is very highly studied cholesterol transport gene correlated to Alzheimer's and dementia. MTHFR, methylation. So this is using folate, converting folate. And they also did an omega-3 fatty acid test, which is one of the best tests that you can run. It's why I included it in the VIP ticket. And then vitamin D, also super important because vitamin D acts on 5% of your total genome. What happened? After 6 months of the intervention, it was concluded that greater improvement in diet was achieved in participants who received personal advice compared to control. All of those people's lab markers radically improved. if you go and look at the study. That's really impressive. So let me tell you about a client of mine who gave me permission. It's often very hard to get, whether it's before and after photos or even a testimonial. But Alex was so pleased with his results. This has been written up in USA Today. I have a blog post about it on my website. And this is just one screenshot, a before and after screenshot of one of the tests that he ran. So if you've heard of the billionaire, Brian Johnson, um, he he is the guy who sold Venmo to PayPal. He spends $2 million a year on his health hacks and quantification. He started a company called Blueprint, and he is obsessed with this epigenetic test, the Dunetin pace. He wants to be number one. He might be number one in the world now. He wasn't. He was like number six at one point. But you can see here that Alex's speed of aging. This is a gentleman, 45 years old, father of three, CEO of his own company, a very successful guy, but he had been diagnosed with liposarcoma and he had just finished cancer treatments when he started working with me and had decided he was going to pour all of his attention into getting healthy, something that he had neglected pretty much his whole life. So when we started, um, he was aging at a pace of 1.2 times per biological year, which meant that he was between mid 50s and 60, not his biological age of 45. So he was shortening his life. And then after 5 months of our work together, we retested him because it was a 6-month program. And month 5, we retested, and it had got dropped down to 0.9. And since then, compound interest, it's probably improved more. So this is also one of the tests provided by True Diagnostic, which is an epigenetic test. So epigenetics is how your DNA is actually expressing, and it's a simple blood prick test. And you could see that when we started, his ohmic age was 56. And after those 5 months, it dropped to 52. And he was 45 biologically. With time, had we continued our work together, retested him, it would have kept dropping. And ideally, like someone like Brian Johnson wants to be younger than their biological age. So, one of the most interesting genes in the nutrigenomic report that I like to run is a meal timing gene, MTNR1B. It's a melatonin receptor gene that is very, very correlated to high blood sugar should someone eat too late at night. And so, uh, to become more metabolically flexible, I encouraged Alex to practice something called ETRF, early time restricted feeding. So it just means taking your 2 or 3 meals, whatever you like to do, and moving the window up so that you're having a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner that is on the early end. Now, Alex struggled with this because he was of European descent and culturally he enjoyed eating with his family around 9 o'clock at night. But I have to tell you that everyone in the family was overweight. And Alex was so happy with his results. He lost 40 pounds in our time together. And obviously, his markers, everything, just so much improved that then I started working with his wife. He wanted me to turn my attention to her. ETRF, there's studies on this if you want to look them up. In one particular study group, this was people brought into a clinic to lose weight, And in this study, it was also a very well done study. Uh, Group A participants were given food at 8 a.m., 11 a.m., I'm sorry, 8 a.m., noon, and 7 p.m. So traditional meal times. And then the ETRF group was given food at 8 a.m., 11 a.m., and 2 p.m. So let's imagine their dinner was at 2 and they didn't eat anything after that. Now that both groups had the same amount of food, same calories, same exact meals, and the group that finished early lost 30% more weight, and their blood markers blew the other group out of the water. Their insulin levels were optimized, blood sugar, A1C, cholesterol, everything improved. And it was no particular dietary plan. It was just whole foods, a very standard type of plate. This is another test just to show you some options. This is called the SpectraCell by Genova, and if you want one, you can go to my website and purchase it on your own. And it's a blood test, full serum blood test, and it goes into all the micronutrients. So very specifically tells you what you might be deficient in. And this will help if you lack energy and you don't know why, you're confused about which supplementation you need. This one can be very helpful. This is what the omega-3 index piece of it looks like. Um, Desirable range you could see here is 8 to 12%. The average American is under 5%. We just don't eat that much fish in our culture. Average Japanese, 9%. They have a lot of seafood in their diet. Why are omega-3 so important? And in my So with my clients, I run a weekly, I do, besides private sessions, we have a weekly group meeting and we treat it a little bit like book club. We're always reading a new book. We're currently reading Memory Rescue by Dr. Daniel Amen, who's one of my mentors. I got certified as a brain health coach back in 2013 through the Amen Clinic. And um, it's his favorite test. It's Dr. Amen's favorite test, and omega-3s are just so important for your brain, for your heart, for reducing inflammation. And most of us have the wrong ratio of omega-3s to omega-6. And so we do need supplementation, but taking the test will also, there's a calculator for telling you how much you should be taking. And then it's not an expensive test. It'll run, depending on where you buy it from, $59 to $89. Can also point you in the right direction on that. So here are some of the things that omegas do. They support thyroid function. They help us manage our weight. They build muscle and growth hormone. I already mentioned the brain function, great for healthy mood. So you probably see with standard fish oil, you see some EPA and some DHA. Now, if you have a condition like ADD or anxiety, you require a formulation that has more DHA because it's very calming to the brain, the DHA. The EPA um, is good. It's almost like an upper. So it's great for someone who is depressed. So even these omegas, they do slightly different things. I don't know if you can see that. Um, right, they help regulate your blood sugar as well and help you absorb K2 calcium and vitamin D. Oh dear, it's happened again. I cannot move the apologies. Stick with me, stick with me. I don't know why it freezes like that. That's too bad that it does that. Maybe it happens because I move the bar. Perhaps you've heard that the Mediterranean diet is the best to do, and there are a lot of studies that say it is, but the Mediterranean diet is not pizza and pasta. What they're talking about is a lot of fish, whole foods, colorful foods, and the key to the success of the Mediterranean diet are the polyphenols. So polyphenols are very important antioxidant compounds that they fight free radicals in the body, and these are some foods that contain polyphenols. You're welcome to screenshot this. Is really important to consume. Some people will even take like tablespoons of olive oil. You'll know it has a high polyphenol count if it kind of burns your throat a little bit. That olive oil has a bite. That's the polyphenol. Mold and mycotoxin testing is great it's a urine test. It's great if you have a very mysterious condition or debilitating fatigue. So, I worked with a woman uh, well, I've done this test not many times, I'll be perfectly honest, because it's not needed very often. But when it is, it's super helpful to understand what's going on. So I had a woman who she had itchy skin all over. She came to my office because she wanted to lose 10 pounds. She had she had regular migraines and very itchy skin. And I said, look, you're inflamed. You're having a histamine response. We have to lower histamine in your body. And so put her on an anti-inflammatory eating plan. She was drinking a lot of wine, so she cut that out. She dropped her 10 pounds, and then the itchiness was resolved just on her wrists. That was really, really odd. So I said, you know what? You're a good candidate for mold testing. And sure enough, she had mold. She had mold, and so we decreased molds in foods. Moldy foods include coffee, um, grains, very moldy because they get stored in these big silos. Never eat a blue corn chip. That's like one of the moldiest things ever. And a lot of nuts, especially pistachios, cashews. Those are some of the moldiest nuts. For fruits, the wet fruits. So cantaloupe, honeydew, melon, watermelon, they naturally have more molds. So um this person, this test, this is a gentleman who's big Starbucks fan, coffee drinker, and his ochratoxin A, it's off the charts. So you can buy mold and mycotoxin free coffee that is tested, and those molds are removed. Because think about a coffee bean, it grows in a wet environment, so the nut itself is quite moldy. There's other microbiome testing that can be done. This is an example of the GI Spotlight. Same lab as the GI map. It's just simplified. It doesn't test for parasites and H. pylori. So for really deep clinical conditions, I like the GI map, or GI effects, which is through Genova. GI Spotlight is a simpler test, and very easy to read as well. The difference between this test and the Enjoy test, the Enjoy is testing the whole picture of the entire microbiome, and it'll give you a map of the whole microbiome. This is called qPCR, so they're testing very specific bacteria for, main bacteria in specific categories, and then they're giving you exact amounts. It's a completely different methodology. So let's say you can't afford any lab testing. No problem. focus on the big rocks. What would be the big rocks in that pillar of nutritional biochemistry? Well, I would be protein forward. Now, if you are plant-based, that's okay, but you absolutely need to hit all your branched chain amino acids and specifically leucine for skeletal muscle. We need 2 grams of leucine per day. So if you are on a plant-based diet and you don't want to break bones like I did, then you need to supplement properly because the reality is it's very, very difficult to extract or combine um, the right combinations of plants together. It's why rice and beans together, they are complementary to form a complete protein. So we have 22 amino acids, 9 of them are essential, meaning we need to get them from the diet and specifically leucine for that skeletal muscle. So big rocks, eat your ideal body weight in grams of protein. I'll say it again, eat your ideal body weight. So if you are if you are a 250-pound man, but you want to be 185 pounds, that's your ideal weight. Like maybe you haven't been that since high school, but that's your ideal weight. Hit your 185 grams. If you are a 150-pound woman, but you want to be 125 pounds in your ideal life, it's 125 grams of protein. Okay? So that's number one, big rock. Number two is we do want to hit the 35 grams of fiber. I prefer to get them from green leafy vegetables. And if you need a dessert, have a piece of fruit. Fruit is the safest plant you can eat, unless you have something called oral allergy syndrome, which is like when your mouth gets itchy from a particular fruit. And that's a whole different topic for a different day. Um, Fruit is meant to be eaten. It's the outcropping of the plant. It's just that we don't need a lot of it, right? So those colors in those foods are very helpful to us. But yeah, and fruit has some fiber, but we mostly want to get that roughage, right? And prebiotics are good from vegetables like artichoke, asparagus. I really like those. And then I'm a big fan of rotating. So cabbage, doing like cabbage steaks or roasted broccoli, cauliflower mashed potatoes, um, just, sautéed kale with olive oil and salt. These are what, I personally like to eat, but I also recommend. So we want to hit those 35 grams of fiber. What else do we want to do? We want to drink half of our body weight in ounces at least, because most people are chronically dehydrated. And don't just drink plain water. Put electrolytes in your water or put a little teeny tiny pinch of salt in your water. Salt has 83 minerals. We run on minerals, and those are our micronutrients. We need them. So don't be afraid to salt your food, and don't be afraid to put electrolytes in your water. I also really love recommending fresh lemon squeezed into water with just a little tiny bit of apple cider vinegar to get the day started. It puts your digestive system into the right pH balance. And I love teaching people how to test their pH, not with test strips, but with the RBTI tools. And happy to do a masterclass separately on that. But you do want your digestive pH to be in balance because we don't want there to be too acidic of an environment to nurture something like cancer. What other big rocks? We need sunlight. We need outside time. We need laughter. We need sleep. And so we're going to move on to sleep as the next pillar to discuss. So these are some scary facts that approximately 70 million Americans struggle with disordered sleep. 1 out of 2 adults report sleep complaints, and up to 10% of adults experience chronic insomnia, and that's pretty devastating. 1 out of 5 experiences excessive daytime sleepiness. Sleep apnea is a huge problem. It's very dangerous. It means you're not getting enough oxygen. And I mean, I know someone that, failed to wear his CPAP one night and had a heart attack. Snoring, huge problem. It's an indicator that there's a blockage in oxygen flow. And as we know, disrupted sleep leads to greater incidence of obesity, heart problems, cognitive decline, and mental health issues. Sleep does change with age, and it can become more fragmented, especially for men over 65. But I like to teach CBTI, which I'm going to get into. This study came out just last week. Daylight exposure linked to better blood sugar control. So we are powered by sunlight, and we have photoreceptors all over our body. So the more outside time we can have, even if you live at a high latitude, like I'm in Vermont and it's New England winter. It's gray, but regardless, and we're not making vitamin D between at my latitude anyway, between September 22nd and March 22nd. Regardless, being outside is really, really important for resetting the circadian rhythm. It's important for your gut microbiome. It's important for your parasympathetic nervous system. Now it's important for your blood sugar. It's important for your mental health. It's important on so many levels. So the more outside time you can have, the better. And you've probably heard that, getting outside first 30 minutes of the day or within that window really helps set your sleep up for success if you can do it. Helps to have a dog, I have to say, because the dog needs to go outside, needs to go for a walk. So it really helps, rain or shine, to do that. You need to understand that even on a cloudy day, you are still receiving quite a lot of light. So, for example, in your living room with light is at about 250 lux, LUX. But if you step outside on a cloudy day, that's now 250,000 lux. Maybe super cloudy, it's only 200,000, but that's still a big difference from 200. Now you're outside on a bluebird day. It's a super sunny day, not a cloud in the sky. We've now jumped to 450,000 lux. So the just stepping outside, even on a cloudy day, is very, very healthy for you to do. So if you need to reset your sleep, um, understand that the gut microbiome plays a role. There are plenty of studies on this. Um, However, these are very well-known tips. The more natural light, the better. Getting up at the same time each day is very, very important. Exercise, exercise, exercise is going to help with your sleep drive. As part of your sleep hygiene, stop with stimulants like caffeine by 10 a.m. If you're a Red Bull drinker, or let's say chocolate stimulates you, just have it early. No naps. Naps are very healthy, but if I'm talking to just people with sleep issues, napping is actually getting in the way of you having a consistent full night of sleep. And then I would encourage you to learn CBTI. My next CBTI class is being run in partnership with Awakenpedia. And that if you go to Eventbrite and type in CBTI Awakenpedia, you can find it. 4-week class. We're doing 4 Monday nights, and it's cheap. It's $100. Totally worth it. What is CBTI? It's cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. It's an effective evidence-based treatment that addresses the root cause of insomnia by addressing the thoughts and habits that impact sleep. It's going to restore your relationship with and about sleep. It reduces sleep onset time by 50%. It improves your daytime functioning. And if you're taking a medication, Ambien, Xanax, Trazodone, it's reduced by 90% with no relapse. And it is comprised of these five pillars: sleep restriction therapy, stimulus control therapy, sleep hygiene, cognitive therapy, and relaxation therapy. All right, we're going to move on to our next pillar. So this falls under the category of um, drugs, hormones, and supplements. Peptides. Peptides, what are they? They're all the rage now, but they're really like the new thing in our medical frontier. They're quite exciting. Um, Peptides are just short chain amino acids. So they're not big enough to be a full protein. Perhaps you have heard of collagen peptides. I take a scoop of collagen peptides and I put them in my coffee every morning. Uh, what do? They are signalers. They can act like hormones. And to make this kind of understandable, insulin was the first peptide to be discovered. Insulin acts as a hormone. And insulin was originally extracted from pigs and cows. And the first type 1 diabetic to receive an insulin shot was in 1923. But pigs and cows, it turned out it weren't good sources to make insulin for humans. So the insulin was synthesized in a lab finally successfully in the 1950s. And ever since then, it's been a boon for type 1 diabetics and now type 2 diabetics. Um, so so we're quite familiar with insulin as a peptide. Now, I'll be honest, when GLPs have apparently been around for decades, um, we are moving in 2026 to fourth generation of the GLPs. It's going to be retatrutide. The original one was, I think, liraglutide, and it's not even listed here because it's not given anymore. But and semaglutide is Gen 3, tirzepatide, I'm sorry, Gen 2, tirzepatide is Gen 3, and now retatrutide is Gen 4. So when these came on the scene, my business got decimated, like absolutely decimated, because most of my practice was built on weight loss, and I had successfully helped people lose weight. You can see the before and after pictures on my website under testimonials. Um, it helped so many people do it without this. However, this has really sped up the process and also um, been such a boon for people who are truly struggling. Now, I was very skeptical because I was not educated on peptides, and I said, you know what? They aren't going away. They aren't going away. If anything, this whole category is expanding, and it is the newest frontier in longevity medicine and regenerative health, all this stuff. So I decided to do an initial certification to better understand so I could partner with a medical group that offers them because I'm not a prescriber. So I can't prescribe peptides ever unless I decide to go to medical school, which isn't happening. So, um, so since I have studied about peptides and learned about all these other peptides that are available and what they do, my mind is expanded. Now I have more knowledge, I have more understanding. And what's so interesting about peptides is that they should be cycled. They should be used for very short periods of time. 8 to 12 weeks is typical because we stop responding to them effectively. We'll have they have their reason for being. They reset our system to do something, and then we should cycle off so that we can, when we reintroduce them at some point, we have a good response again. And unfortunately, with the GLPs, that's not happening. That's not happening for people. Um, they're not being taught how to use them as just a tool. They are the tool. They are the solution. There's no nutrition counseling that med spas are offering, certainly, and lifestyle and how to manage stress and use the tool, but also learn to make good decisions. For example, I had a good friend who um, paid for Ozempic 6 months out of pocket. She lost 50 pounds. Um, Whenever we go out to dinner, she would choose the worst thing on the menu. I have to say, it was whatever was fried, you know. And then she'd have 2 bites of food, leave the rest. And I asked, and I just knew, I asked her one day, what is your strategy when you decide to come off of this? And she said, well, I know I'm a terrible eater, but I've learned about portion control. And unfortunately, your appetite will return. And it's not about starving yourself. It's about eating well and resetting your system so that it's more efficient. Um, and so, of course, she gained her weight back because she didn't fundamentally transform her choices. So that is sort of the dark side of relying on a tool like this. Those are the people that will have to keep increasing their dose. The response becomes less and less strong, and so you just keep increasing the dose. But if you don't fundamentally change your behavior, remember that 80%, and pair it with the right strategy for your body, it's not a good tool. It can be a harmful tool. Now you can see from this chart, there are so many. This is just the beginning, everybody. This is just the beginning of the peptides. I just put some of the most interesting ones I could think of on here. I actually bought, and not all of them are delivered uh, not through injection. Some are nasal sprays, some are lozenges. They're called troches. Some are liposomal pump that you take orally and swish into your mouth. So there are some that are taken like a supplement. So there's different delivery mechanisms, and some forms of the delivery are more effective than others. But for example, I bought epithalin, thymosin, alpha as as pumps, and that's a very effective way to do it. And the dosage, I bought it for my father. I went to a longevity conference. I bought it, gifted it to him for Christmas. The dose is only 14 days, twice, like 14 days, twice a year. And uh, these are peptides that are very geroprotective, meaning they're protecting against aging. What they do is they act on telomerase, so the enzyme that's connected to your telomeres. And so they slow, excuse me, your speed of aging. These are not my slides. These are slides from the medical team that I studied under, from the course that I took, but I wanted to give you some examples. So MOTS-c is a mitochondrial-derived peptide that directly activates the AMPK pathway. It improves glucose utilization. It enhances that metabolic flexibility. and it's very anti-inflammatory. So it shifts your immune metabolism towards a calmer, more regulated state. And you can see here's their like dosing, 5 to 10 milligrams per injection, anywhere from once a week to 3 times per week. And you do it for a month to 2 months. It's often paired with fasting and low sugar. AOD 9604 also encourages fat burning, so you don't need to take a GLP. You can do some of these other things. It reduces the creation of fat. It also supports the AMPK pathway. It does not stimulate muscle breakdown like a GLP. It comes from the human growth hormone secretagogue category. So if we go back up, you can see the secretagogues. These are human growth hormone, tesamorelin, sermorelin, ipamorelin. These actually stimulate appetite, but tesamorelin, for example, very specifically doesn't give you a strong appetite signal, and it targets visceral fat, so it reduces belly fat. So you could pair tesamorelin with a tirzepatide, with maybe even a low dose naltrexone, because you want that hedonistic center in your brain to be calm and like not want cravings at all, like have cravings at all. So with the right eating strategy, uh, looking and also looking at your genetics, making sure all the minerals are right, the supplements are right, you very effectively can get where you need to go in just a couple of months. And you'll see here, again, not my client, it's the medical center's client. She looks pretty different after 2 months. This is 2 months um, taking something called SS31, which also optimizes mitochondrial efficiency, and glutathione injections. This is a different client. You know this person. This person is struggling. This person started at 250 pounds, and how are they going to get to this? 143 with just nutrition. Is it possible with a lot of hard work? Yes, but this is where peptides are quite magical. Um, She did a cyclical ketogenic diet, no surprise to me, something I specialize in. So targeted carb refeed days, and which they call carb pulsing. And she was on, if I recall, 2.5 milligrams of tirzepatide twice weekly for 12 weeks, but she also was put on cycles of other things, and this whole process took 1 year. So she also took epitalin, KPV, BPC 157, CJC. So there was a whole protocol, and she was followed obviously very closely with her health coach. This is an email, so a testimonial that I'd like to read to you. Hi, Christina. I wanted to share a bit of my personal experience working with a few peptides because the results have honestly been impressive. My husband started using Motzi a few weeks ago. He had been dealing with persistent hip pain for months, bad enough that he developed a slight limp. After just 2 doses, his symptoms completely resolved. Since then, he's been able to focus on mobility and stretching, which gives us confidence that the improvements will be long-lasting, not just temporary relief. We've also used peptides with my son, who tore the labrum in both shoulders and has required 2 surgeries. The first surgery was about a year ago, and despite being extremely consistent with physical therapy, his recovery was slow and painful. His second shoulder was surgically repaired about a month ago, and this time we incorporated BPC 157 and TB 500. Between us, that's called the Wolverine stack. At just 4 weeks post-op, he already has full range of motion and can raise his arm overhead. No load yet. The contrast in recovery between the 2 surgeries has been remarkable. I wanted to pass this along because seeing these results firsthand has been pretty eye-opening. So if peptides are of interest, I would love to put you in touch with this medical team. You can work with them alone, or in partnership with me in a very personalized way. So, um, do you need the peptides? No, like I said, I have helped many people. However, I'm going to say that over 50, things really do start to change. And as someone who is very, very invested in health and doing all the things, I'm very excited about these peptides and to start trying some of these peptides, um, because we do just want to improve. I mean, we have seen, and this has even changed very recently with the black box removal of the hormone replacement therapy. But hormone replacement therapy is, whether it's a man getting testosterone or a woman getting estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone as a combined treatment post-menopause, is a game changer for longevity. Because what happens after menopause? When that estrogen and progesterone depletes, you get osteoporosis. Your cholesterol shoots sky high because your liver's trying so hard to make it's pumping out cholesterol to make hormones, because all hormones are derived from cholesterol. And so cholesterol is rising. So now your doctor is concerned and wants to put you on a statin. You're experiencing brain fog. You don't think as clearly because you don't have as much hormone in your body. Your body's more inflamed and has less antioxidant like glutathione to handle and recover and fight those free radicals. Your brain starts to shrink a little bit because less oxygen flow. Maybe you're not moving as much, you're more sedentary. Maybe you're losing muscle mass year over year, because they say every decade of life we start to lose 10% of our muscle mass. So peptides are very exciting. We should not be exerting morality about peptides. We don't exert morality if someone needs the antibiotic to fight a bacterial infection. We don't exert morality if we put a cast on a broken bone. And now we're not exerting morality on people who are doing hormone replacement therapy. Uh, to get their hormones to a functional level, because they are longevity extenders. And peptides are things that our body does that is making them better. So it's just another tool. It's totally up to you to use it or not. Yes, they're quite pricey at the moment. Someday, hopefully, these prices they come down, but I see them as tools and not the strategy itself, because I believe we should be looking at some of that other data too, to make sure that you are actually well nourished, that you're not hormone resistant going into peptide therapy, so that you can actually respond to your peptide therapy. And I think it's really important to look at the genetics to see what is paired properly. Um, TCF7L2, as an example, is an incretin, is your pancreas and how well you handle incretin. Now, tirzepatide specifically is not just GLP-1, it's also GIP, which is incretin peptide. So that's helping someone with a TCF7L2 variant. Wouldn't it be helpful to look at your genetics before you do peptides? Yes. Yes, it would be. Our last pillar is stress, resilience, and recovery. This is very near and dear to my heart, because this is actually like the crux of wellness. I mean, you could eat perfectly, but if you're stressed out all the time and you can't handle what life is throwing at you, um, no, it doesn't work. So, um, something that changed my life, and I'm not being trite, it was learning heart math. I used to have debilitating panic attacks before doing any kind of public speaking. And the thought, like the fact that I do live events, the fact that I was able to get through the stress of a hacker disrupting my presentation is I 100% credit heart math and my heart math practice. Um, Heart math is emotional resilience training. It helps people perform under pressure. It's taught to Navy SEALs, CEOs, first responders, teachers, students, at like elite athletes, like anyone who wants to perform better under pressure, anyone who has anxiety, anyone who gets nervous, like me, public speaking. Golfers, I've taught a lot of golfers because they kind of fall apart on the golf course and don't perform well. Heart math is amazing for resilience training. I've also been studying yoga nidra, and I've been infusing that with my clientele as well. Yoga nidra is also called non-sleep deep rest. There's me. There's me resting, doing yoga nidra. Big fan, big fan. Anything that you can do to calm your nervous system is amazing. So these are other things, added things that I add into my client sessions. So I invite you to think like a pro, like be like me, you know, figure out what you need. I've done all these tests on myself. I'm a big fan. You are worth the investment. And so think about what it'd be like to say yes to your health and feel great. And if you have a clinical condition, to not be suffering so much. I do want to I do want to share a testimonial that I have on one of my websites. Here, on one second. So my screen sharing stopped. Stay with me, stay with me. Thank you so much. Okay, so um, I'm gonna play this one testimonial for you. Kismet, I'm gonna feed you dinner in a sec. Give me a second. I'm almost done. Okay. Um, so this is okay, she's great. She's gonna tell her story. I have an autoimmune condition. I have a version of scleroderma. I've had it for a very long time, but it wasn't diagnosed. It was masked by other things. And late in 2017, I was feeling especially unwell. I was very bloated, very sore, um, a lot of a lot of symptoms. And I went to a rheumatologist who was wonderful, but I couldn't tolerate the medication. It made me feel many, many times worse. And I was with a client, I'm an interior designer, and I was with a client and found that I could follow what they were saying, but it was as if I was wrapped in cling film and couldn't respond. And I just thought, this is no way to live. So I called the doctor, said, I am not doing the medication. And Christina's mother is a very good friend of mine, and I knew Christina was a nutritionist, and I knew that she was a clinical nutritionist, and I knew that I couldn't sort this out on my own. So, and I knew too that nutrition was a very important part of it. And I had changed how I eat since I came to the States. I was eating processed food, I was eating on the go, it was bad. So I came to see her, told her just what I've told you, brought my blood work, brought my food diary, over which we had more than one good laugh. And she explained what I needed to do, set me up with weekly meetings with constant contact by email or text if I needed it, very much available at the beginning so that I could check in on even something as simple as ingredients. And here I am now. I see her once a month. So I saw her every week, I think, for 3 months. And then we stretched it out to every two, and then every month.
Since working with Christina, and actually almost immediately after the first month, my symptoms diminished and have now almost disappeared. I can do a full day's work again. I'm alert. I sleep better. My hands are not swollen. My joints are not swollen. I paint and draw a lot as part of my work. I can now hold the materials again. Um, I have energy. I can exercise. I can taste my food better. And then the bit that everybody notices is that I've lost a massive amount of weight, which she and I have never even discussed because it wasn't part of what I came to her for, but I'll take it. Working with Christina means that you're taking it seriously. She's a serious person. She's a very well-educated person. She's very serious about what she does, and it requires that you be honest. And she knows every trick in the book about, well, my food diary is almost complete, and she knows. Um, she's very professional. She's gentle but firm when she needs to be. Um, and she's persistent and she's encouraging and accepting. You don't ever feel embarrassed or ashamed. And I think for me, especially as I have an underlying medical condition, and I was really quite desperate because I didn't want medication, I would not have known where to start. And I needed the guidance and the focus of somebody else. And frankly, the discipline of putting it on the schedule, knowing I had a commitment and keeping it. That was very good for me. It makes perfect sense to me. I don't eat junk anymore. I don't eat processed foods. I eat the food I was raised on. We always ate fresh food at home. Um, I cook a lot, and I always did, but I've gone back to cooking properly without lots of additives. I'm not hungry. I eat what I want. I eat what's good. And every once in a while, I'll have a piece of chocolate, but that's it. I don't have cravings. I think it's how you're meant to eat. No,
So you get the idea there. So I hope you've enjoyed this master class and I've piqued your interest into the possibilities of what is available to you in terms of personalized nutrition. And of course, I'd love to invite you to come work with me. So, below this masterclass video is a link to my calendar if you want to ask a question further about how to book a consultation or any of the lab packages that include lab testing, or that include the visit to the medical team, because I have packages that include testing that include the visit with the medical team, and they do a full panel of 60 plus biomarkers as part of that onboarding with them, and that would be included in your lab package. So if any of it, or you just want to do one test and one consultation, or you need accountability and you don't want to do testing, but you are looking for nutrition support, I have all different kinds of options out there for you. So please book a call. There's no pressure. I'm happy to even point you in direction if you're just even looking for a supplement recommendation. So please book a call. The calendar is below. I look forward to talking to you. Okay, be blessed. Bye-bye.